Hey guys, gonna make a video on APLM. I absolutely slapped this thing. I caught a long. I'll show you. Uh, Here's my chart. Got a long at the longing at the top. Okay, guys? Trading's really simple. All right, gonna make my picture really big. You long at the top and you make 30%. All right, that's how you trade. Okay, you long at the top and you make money. Okay, I'm actually joking, but I did long at the top. Um, I did long here in at around a 150 average, and what do you call it? I caught this long, and these are just pure bookmap reads combined with the volume plus bookmap reads, and then I shorted up here in the twos. Um, Took it a little bit off because I thought maybe there might be some market open manipulation and a push, but it turns out this stock has a 6 month IPO expiry type of trade, which means insiders, after 6 months after IPO, insiders are able to sell their shares. And what they do is they pump a stock, often in the pre market, um, and then dump into the market open volume. So that's pretty much how it works. But I always like to have a bullish thesis in case it does some crazy manipulated stuff. Um, but yeah, let's go over the reads. Okay, so this thing pops, right? And the very first thing I always look at is the volume. Okay, what do we see? We see insane. This is not a pre-market pop pattern, guys. This is 250k, 330k, 400, 500, 500. Like this is increasing, insane up only volume, and this actually kind of reminded me of INM when IMM did this push, right? This is like strong, consistent volume, straight up the 1 minute 9, right? Um, not so, This is really not the type of trade where you're trying to guess where where the high day candle is going to be, right? I'm usually not that type of trader at all, which is why I took when I took a short, I'm shorting over here, not trying to predict high day, even though this actually wasn't that bad. So go to bookmap and let's go back to the historical data, go back to the pre-market, gotta load a little bit more. Okay, so what do I say? Why did I long this? Okay, here's the crazy volume, right? So I saw this push and I'm like, all right, volume's nuts. I'm not looking to short this crazy increasing volume. Let me just open up the book. I saw this kind of, 1.3s to 1.6 squeeze, right? And you see the pullback through the empty space. But, I'm just looking at this. I'm like, what do I see to the upside and what I see to the downside, right? And what I see to the upside on this pullback is that there's no orders here. So if you're shorting, if you're trying to predict the top, like what ask are you going to use as resistance? Like the thing about pre-market, pre-market has insane fades. Has insane fades because it's very easy to manipulate a stock in the pre-market, gap it up whatever percent, and then just straight dump straight down. Right? You're gonna in low floats. There's a lot of straight up, straight down. It's that's why there's massive edge in shorting pre-market. In low floats, but it's a two-way street, right? It's the opposite is really, really crazy moves, and we see 1,000% moves in the pre-market happen because if a buyer is there, think of SLNO when it went from 3 to 30. If that was a legitimate biotech fund buying in the pre-market, if a buyer is there and the order book is just empty to the upside, like all their buys are just going to keep pushing through all this empty space, and if you're trying to predict tops, it's really bad. So, you can really get squeezed, especially if the volume's there. You can really get squeezed. So, empty space. I see the pullback, and then I just start seeing bid stack, and then I saw this bid and this bid. I see bids down here, and I see all, and I started longing into this. This is where I started longing because I was like, all right, crazy Momo play, no offers to the upside. Now, to think about this, it's hard to do a lot of size because it's hard to be really confident and longing at the top. A lot, sometimes I'll hit pre-market longs like this where I'll make 30, 40, 50%, even sometimes 80% on a pre-market long, but the size a lot of times isn't really big because unless there's like proper structure to size in, you're just betting these bids hold and you're betting it's just going to keep slapping up. But the thing about going long, the reason I held on to my long, because in low floats, sometimes you'll long into bids, and I've talked about this in my previous videos on the book map. You're long into bids, but on the pushes, the bids don't follow it up. And believe it or not, that's actually very, very bearish. And in the right context, that could be the short that leads to a 20, 30, 40% fade. So if you're longing, what you really want to see is you want to see bids follow the stock up. Follow up bids, like at 1.5. Okay, pushes 1.6, follow up bids. So I'm like, oh, this is, and then the volume is the buying volume. It's just, like I said, go back to the chart. We're just seeing 500K, 500K, 500K. The volume's not letting up. Like, it is just consistently strong volume. No, look how thin this book is. Like, if you're trying to predict, like, these shorts in the 150s, like, where are the orders? $2? You know what I mean? Like, where's the, what are you risking? So these guys just come in, they know the order book's thin. They know, shorts are slapping. And longs that are taking profits. Um, and I was selling into strength because I just never know how high these things are gonna go. So once I'm up like, 15%, 20%, I start selling some just because I don't know when the bids are gonna pull. Um, but maybe I should have an approach where it's like, well, as long as all these bids are holding, and as long as there's no new offers to the upside, maybe I should just big brain keep holding this stuff, right? So yeah, and I just held. I held. We got a nice little. I mean, you can just see there's more bids. There's more bids, and now we're actually starting to get into offers. So now we're actually going to start to see some stalling because now finally all this empty space got filled, and now we're actually where sellers are on the ask, right? That now doesn't mean it's going to start, selling off right away, but you can expect some resistance, right? You start to see offers come in. But I wasn't bearish this because look, there's still again on this pullback. So this these pullbacks here and here, like you still want to see the bid support, right? And we see that we see this candle, and a lot of shorts will just start smacking this because it's the highest volume, red exhaustion candle. Um, After a parabolic into an exhaustion candle, like it's shorts are just gonna be slapping it. They're just gonna be slapping it. It's just how shorts think. You know what I mean? So and we get the same stuff we almost always see on these trap plays, right? We get a big exhaustion candle. There's not a lot of bids here, so it sells through all these bids. And then the MM just starts throwing up bids at the bottom. They just throw it, and then there's like a few levels. So maybe that's resistance. Like we'll see. We'll see what happens with these bids. We'll see what happens on these pushes. Maybe you could keep an open mind for a type of short, but like like if you're shorting this again, if you're shorting the exhaustion candle and shorting in the 190s, like you have a few offers to risk and you have a bunch of bids to the downside. All right, like so, like what's the short? Like, what's the short? Like and what's funny, I actually sold my long here because I had to go to the bathroom. I had to drop a deuce, and sorry about that. And I was like, I don't want to get dumped on. I'll just sell my long, and I actually I full sold right around this area, and I missed the big brain squeeze. But yeah, I mean, you could see the bids in the 180s. You could see them holding. A lot of these bigger bids to the downside are not even getting tested. We do start to see some offers up here. So, you know, what's important is on these types of moves, right? Yeah, there's no bids following this up, but what happens on the reactions to these offers, and if it breaks these, is it going to start stalling? Are we going to get new offers? Ideally for like if you want to short this type of action on the book map, like it hits these offers and starts stalling, right? And then it starts pulling back with weaker volume. You see new offers on the ask start to get stacked, right? You start to see signs of weakness at these resistance. You see no real bidders following this up. That's really what you want to see. But in this case, like it just hits the one level, has like a 5 second pullback, hits another level, and just like goes straight up. I mean, it's just um, there's no real reads unless you're just trying to short the very first tap and just trying to risk these offers. But like I said, I wasn't even here for this. I was in the bathroom, and I came back, and this is when understanding some like structure is important. So structure, by the way, people always ask me what does structure mean. I pretty much mean how the move got there, and then how the move is setting up, right? Like, I always see up only as potentially bearish. If I get a nice signal later, right? And I especially, so this example of structure, like we get a 20% 1 minute green candle, and I just learned, and we haven't seen this in a bit. We haven't seen this type of price action in a while. This is like one of those little bearish, possibly bearish signals that you might not see this for like a month, and then it shows up like 3 times in a week. Whereas essentially you get a high day clear out that on a very, very, very extended ticker, you get a high day clear out that tops right away and starts showing weakness. I could go find old examples. I didn't find them for this video, but I do consider this type of action bearish. But um, I really wanted to wait for some type of bookmap signal. So I came back, I saw this, and I saw them start stacking the ask at 215s. And I'm noticing, if we zoom out, once you get past 2, there's almost no bids all the way down to the 180. So now we get a little short squeeze, right? It tops out right away. We start to get ask, and we're not seeing a lot of bids. So now it's worth it to have a bearish bias. And, like I said, the higher something squeezes, and the more shorts get stopped out, and trust me, a lot of shorts got stopped. They freaked out on this candle and covered. Um, the better the short becomes, right? So I was like, all right, well, I saw them throw some bids down here, and I was like, well, let me see what type of. But I noticed there's still not a lot of bids to the downside. I was like, all right, there's a 215 guy here. He didn't even get touched. I like the bearishness of the squeeze. Um, and then I saw them throw up 207s. And once I saw this, I started shorting into these bids because eventually you could stack bids, but eventually the higher something gets, bids are more likely to get sold into, right? So in this case, I saw them moving the ask down, moving the ask, just how we saw them moving the bid up, moving bids up, moving bids up, moving bids. It's the same thing on the backside. It's the same concept. It's just flip the chart, right? So I started sizing in here. We get a nice $2 dump, but what does that do? When we get quick dumps, what happens? It creates that like an empty air pocket right here, a lot of empty orders. So they just order it up. So it's like, well, um, ultimately I was going to see how it reacted to 207 and then 215s. I had some offers to risk. Um, so when I saw this push, I was like, let me see, like, all right, like over the course of my career, I just learned not to freak out on these pushes. Um, and not only that, we can actually see them pulling bids. So now we're starting to get very bearish bookmap territory where they're pulling bids. They're filling these empty spaces, but there's ask stacked higher. This one didn't even get touched. We get a low volume pullback after an aggressive move, and I just started sizing in even more. And then that was even before this showed up, and now you just see them walking it down, like they're just throwing up ask on the way. And even though there's bids, again, if we zoom out, once we get past the 180 guys, there's just nothing on the book. So it's like, okay, I told my chat, I was like, one possible manipulated move is that they control this walk down into the open, right? So you get a controlled walk down, and then they swipe support and squeeze it, right? And we see this in low floats. They use the market open volume to shake out a few more longs, trap some shorts, and then push it, right? Like my PXMD long. But overall, I was telling like a guy asked me, it's like, well, how do you position your trade in that? I was like, well, I'm net bearish this. I'm bearish the bookmap action in the pre-market. I'm bearish how this stock topped, right? And I'm just kind of mentally preparing myself in case there's some type of move higher. And the reason I covered is because I saw some bidders down here in the 150s, and I saw the empty space. I was like, if they do some type of manipulated move back above 180 and 2, like let me take some off into these bids. I'm up 20% just in case. Um, but a guy in my chat, Corey, mentioned that there's the IPO lockup. They could just be dumping. I had that in my mind, and then once I saw these bids, like, look, there's all these bids, and they just started smacking them, man, and more bids, and they just like bid walk up, and then like 300K, and then they just started smacking. So I just, um, I held. I'm still holding 75% of my position. I'm probably just going to hold the end of day, see what happens. Sometimes the end of day on these kind of like liquidation plays, it gets really, 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 really like thin, and it kind of consolidates, and maybe it gives one more leg down. Like we'll see. Any bounces, in my opinion, are unlikely to be super strong. Um, so yeah, this was one of my cleaner charts. I'll open it again. One of my cleaner moves. What do you call it? So this is just longing based on the volume. The volume, increasing volume, the bids on the book map, and the lack of offers. That's why I went long here. And I kept holding my long, sold into strength a little bit, but the bids just keep following us up, following us up, following us up. And then we get a nice little high to clear out, the tops right away. You start seeing the ask come in, and then once I saw the 207 guy come in after the 215 guy, I just started shorting. Here's a little empty space pop. That went nowhere. I added more, and then the ass just started pushing this down, pushing this down, pushing this down. And yeah, here's my cover. Covered a little bit into those bids in the 150s, just in case. And then, but maybe I should have just had the thesis of massive, massive down only dump, and should have just held the whole thing and that type of thing. So, one of my more big brain plays: clean long, clean short. Great book map reads. So yeah. And here's, oh, by the way, this is my Discord. Here's a little chart explanation. Here's my bid. I even like, you know, show where I longed, show what the bid support looked like. That's what the long looked like. Here's the short. Here's the ask coming in. Not a whole ton of bid support. It's overall bearish to structure. And yeah, and then if you come in my Discord, you'll see lots and lots and lots of book map examples, both long and short, what it looks like. And yeah, APLM, huge winner. I made about 20, um, God, what was it? About 20, 25% on the way up, and then, 50% on the way down. So nice day. All right, have a good one, guys.